This is Rob here, and we're now going to be analysing the money pages of the July 1965 issue of Vogue. These are pages 14 and 18. They are separated in the magazine. This happens sometimes. You'll have an article or a feature starting, say, in the middle of the magazine, and then will be continued in the back of the magazine. This, of course, is to get you to flick through the magazine to get to the other part of it, forcing you to look at the bits in between, specifically the adverts. Right, okay, so we've got 2 pages, not actually a double page spread. I've just photoshopped them next to each other for convenience. Right, okay, so what have we got here? This is the money section. So, as you can see from the headline at the top here, the title, it's money. Okay, it's in these boxes separated by rules. Questions and answers by Sheila Black of the Financial Times. So the Financial Times is, of course, a newspaper, which, as we said, was, when we looked at newspapers last year, was aimed predominantly at a male audience, something like 85% male, but certainly, you know, very AB, so very high class, and deals principally with finances. So this suggests that women do not know much about finance and therefore have to ask the magazine for help. Right, so what are we looking at here? It says, this is the copy, so we've got columns, right? Remember, this is the gutter here, the gap between the pages. These are gutters separating the different columns. We've got a 2-column grid on each page. This is the left-hand page, it's called the verso page. The right-hand page is called the recto page. Down here we've got the folios in the bottom border. These are called rules. These are called lines of text. All text is called copy. Pictures are called art. Obviously it's separated into a column of copy and a column of advertising. Right, so font-wise, as part of the house style, it's using a, well, this is called a department head. It's the name of the section of the magazine. If it's on more than one page like this, it's a running department head. It's part of the house style. Right, as you can see, it's using sans serif fonts. Looks modern, looks sophisticated. This, however, is in a serif font, similar to Times New Roman. Serif fonts are much easier to read when you've got small text. This would be something like 0.9, I'd imagine. So remember, we need to be looking at what is denoted and what is connoted. So we need to look at the semiotic signs, the media language that is being used. But we also have to analyse the text. How are people being represented? How are things being represented? How's gender being represented? So we need to consider semiotics. We need to consider genre, like structuralism, Claude Levi-Strauss, what are the binary opposites? We need to consider Stuart Hall's ideas of representation. And we need to consider feminism, like Lisbeth Van Zunen and Bell Hooks. And gender performativity with Judith Butler. So, what does this say? In the 6 months that I've been a small part of Vogue, notice they've put italics for names. You should do this too when you're writing the names of media texts. In the 6 months that I've been a small part of Vogue, I've come to learn a lot about Vogue readers from their letters. So, here we've got the ability to speak back to the audience. This is active audience theory. They're not just passive. There is a two-way communication process here. Okay, so here we're going into, well, Clay Shirky was talking about how the internet makes this possible, but let's face it, you could do this back in the days of print and letters. Okay, so you didn't need the internet to make things two-way and to make it interactive. Notice how it's written here in the first person. This makes it personal. It's a direct mode of address. She is speaking about herself. She's speaking to you in a mode of address that we describe as teacher to pupil, but a little bit of peer-to-peer. She's not condescending. She's not patronizing. She's not talking down to the audience. Okay, she's talking to it as if you were an equal. It just happens that she's an expert. In the 6 months that I've been a small part of Vogue, I've come to learn a lot about Vogue readers from their letters. Most of them confirmed things I already knew or suspected. For example, I knew that they were intelligent. I mean, I've always been one myself. I knew that most of them were happily free of financial problems, that a number were definitely rich, and there must be a fair ballast of those who have more taste than money. So, it's suggesting that you've got a very rich readership, people who are in the A or B categories. They are either upper class or they are bourgeois, they are middle class. However, there are some that are aspirational. They have more taste than money. They may not yet be rich, but they might save up for those little luxuries to buy that bit of, those pair of shoes or that dress that's expensive, but they're willing to fork out for it. Or maybe they may aspire to be able to do this. The thing that's most surprised me is the number of women with money who admit they had nothing more than doing nothing more with it than buy what they want and leave the rest in the bank. The wish to invest is there, but the fear of losing money inhibits most women from taking the first steps, suggesting that women do not have the financial understanding to be able to do this, and this is something that's usually the resolve of men. Now remember, in those days, being a patriarchal society, technically and legally speaking, and this is still true in some parts of the world, even America, women were property. When you were a child, or before you got married, you were the property of your father. That's true of male children too, to be fair. But once you became married, you became the property of your husband. Women had little control over their own finances. Once they became, even if they were independently rich and didn't have to work, or even if they worked for themselves, once they got married, the husband became the sole proprietor of that money. It was theirs to do with as they wished. Women couldn't open a bank account on their own. They had to get a man's permission. I don't even think we're allowed to own a bank account, frankly. Women couldn't get mortgages. Women weren't allowed to buy things without a man to do it for them. They were definitely second-class citizens, and one of the reasons why you needed second-wave feminism. Most of these letters asked for my advice in rather vague terms. Dear Mrs. Black, Miss, notice not Mrs. She'd have been, once she got married, she'd have been Mrs., but then she'd have probably been expected to give up her job and be a housewife and have children. Dear Miss Black, what can I buy with £500? It's just not enough. £500, but that in perspective, today's money would be somewhere between £1,800 and £2,340, depending how you calculate it. Some readers even leave out the £500 bit. I've had to ask something like 1/3 of my correspondence for more information before I can give any kind of helpful answer. So I hope those of you who are not so vague will be patient while I make some suggestions for the others. First, the borrowers, as appears to be underlined for emphasis. I'm all for people borrowing money, but when you ask how to go about it, please say what you want the money for and what security you can offer. Security means anything you own that has an intrinsic value. Pictures, jewellery, share certificates. And any security you offer has to be lodged with the bank that lends you the money. Notice this, it's assuming that you've got art that's worth money. It's not just, mass-produced tat. That you have jewellery that might be expensive and valuable. That you own shares and stocks in companies. This is something that only the middle classes really do. That is, anything saleable like jewellery or certificates. House and other property involve documents. No lending company, banks, finance houses lends without security. Although there can sometimes be estimated profits from a business, intangible securities of this kind are not unusual. And before leaving the subject of securities, they have to belong to the borrower or pledged by the borrower's guarantor on her behalf. It may sound obvious enough, but it seems that a lot of people expect lenders to just take the joint home on trust and advance any loan asked. Obviously, it's the joint home. It's owned jointly by the husband and wife, but more likely by the husband. Home improvements crop up in many letters. Well, as someone like Lisbeth Van Zunen would suggest, this is implying that the home is the woman's preserve, that it is the woman's role to be domestic, and it is her job to look after the house, and it is the man's job to earn the money. Home improvements crop up in many letters, enough to make it worth repeating that these can often be done through hire purchase companies on personal loan schemes, which give some income tax reliefs that hire purchase repayments don't offer, and that building societies with insufficient funds to meet full mortgage applications are lending more and more to existing borrowers to improve the value of their houses, partly owned by both lender and borrower. In those days, it was far less likely that people owned their houses. Only rich people owned their houses. Working class people would have lived in council houses that were provided by the state. It was only when Margaret Thatcher and the Conservative government of the 1980s sold all these off to private owners that the average person in Britain even considered owning a home. So it implies that the reader is middle class and wealthy and owns the property. But there are usually minimum amounts one can borrow in this way. Notice these of 1. This is an elaborate code language that Basil Bernstein would suggest. It implies a high level of reading skills. It costs money to administer loans, and few companies will lend such small amounts that they lose on the deal. So don't expect to get £50 for repainting the hall from anyone except the bank manager if he's willing. Again, do you need £1,800 to paint your hall? On insurance problems, there's also a dearth of information. So much so that I begin to understand why so many people have the wrong policies. Taking life insurance as an example, essential data includes the age of the insured and the beneficiaries. Income, sources of income, and how long both are likely to be stable. Medical history is important, whether or not one wants an... Stops mid-sentence. It's then followed by a turn, in brackets, continued on page 18, in italics. This is going to make you then turn through the magazine to read the rest of it. It's a similar principle to why people move things around in supermarkets, so that instead of going straight to the thing, you have to hunt for it, therefore looking at the other things that are on offer. It's the same in a magazine. By moving the other part of the article to the back of the magazine, it makes you flick through the rest of it so you look at the other adverts. We continue on page 18. Whether or not one's an endowment and at what age, whether one's expectation is of greater or smaller income in the years ahead, and so on. Then there are the women who want to insure, borrow or invest without their husbands knowing about it. Okay, we said patriarchal society, the man is expected to be in charge of the money. I'm not going into the moralities of this. I can only say that in British financial law, married women are never independent, even if they are the chief breadwinners, and they have no chance of keeping their affairs completely private. Patriarchal society, remember. Banks honour wifely privacy, but in the end comes that income tax return which has to be signed by the husband after all the details of the wife, income, etc. have been entered, suggesting it's the man's job to be in charge of the money. And in nearly all other financial transactions, married women have to bring their husbands in somehow. Sorry, but there it is. Would that be true today? Probably not. Although you'd like to think so on a matter of morality. Married couples should not be keeping things from one another. And that brings me to another subject of letters. Summed up into the question is, can I invest and make money without paying income tax? The answer is positively no, capital letters for emphasis. The illusion that tax-free dividends don't have to be declared is just that, an illusion. The stocks or shares or bond holdings have to be declared, as do the dividends, even when no tax is due. Forms should be filled in regardless of whether anyone is eligible for any tax, none at all, and now there is capital gains tax, the position is even stricter. Okay, this is using jargon that you should expect to understand. It's an elaborate code. Which brings me to shares. Again, stocks and shares are things that only the middle class are expected to be able to afford. One woman asked me how she should invest £10,000. That's anywhere between £360,000 and £467,000 in today's money. Others were more modest, but the question was as basic. A good many just wanted to dabble or just do something about money. Obviously, any advisor must first know what proportions of your total wealth is represented by £10,000, £5,000, or even £100. It is worse to lose £100 if that's all you have than £10,000 when you have £20,000. Well, £20,000 is between £720,000 and £935,000, so that's knocking on £1 million in today's money. Then one must know whether one is able to lock the money away and for how long. It might be needed suddenly, premium bonds are the safest answer, since you should not be forced to sell shares at a loss. Another thing is whether one wants a good income, and therefore high-yielding shares or no income at all, and as much capital gain as possible, taxed or not. Age is important too. There's little point in the really elderly buying long-term or undated stocks of many types. These are the recurring points in letters. I hope I don't sound too pompous when I say I do feel rather inadequate when I have to keep answering that I can't help without another letter, but it is true. Anything I'm told is completely confidential, and the same is true of any information you give to the bank manager, insurance broker or agent, building society or anybody else. Finally, I'm always being asked about shares and why I don't tip them. In broad terms, I will. After the shakeout of the last budget restrictions and resettlement and normal in early autumn, we hope, but only broadly. Share buying is a rather sensitive day-to-day business, with prices and all situations altering while the magazine is being printed or in even less time. Obviously, under present conditions, one should back management and skills. So I shall talk about the top managers and successful buyers of jewellery or pictures or antiques and pass their advice on in the hope of shedding some light on what looks to be a long, dark winter. This is implying a lot about the audience. It is implying that they are middle class or upper class. It is implying that they are comfortably well off or even flat out wealthy. It's implying that they've got a high level of education, a high lexis and language skills, that they are able to read an elaborate code language. So therefore the reader of this magazine is intelligent. However, they do not have an understanding of financial matters. This is the kind of things that is traditionally left to, in inverted brackets, the husband to do. Okay, so it is implying that it is a man's job and not a woman's to be interested in money, but it's something women might want to dabble in. It's also implying they might want to keep this secret from their husbands, because that's handing over a bit of control. It's about wresting control back from the husband, you might argue. So, that is the body, in terms of copy and what it's saying. Right? But this is almost in many ways countering this traditional stereotype of what you might have of women in the 1960s. Now let's look at the advertising. Again, a mixture of photographic and graphical art. In this case, this is for Gala Cosmetics. Right, Gala, notice, Gala is a kind of rose. But notice the rose. Again, this is suggestive of femininity. It's suggestive of the female. It's a stereotype, remember Walter Lippmann, that women should be interested in flowers. Okay? Roses are also symbols of romance. They are, after all, before they bloom, phallic symbols. Pink and red are traditional colours of roses, as are yellow and white. These are, again, stereotypically in many ways feminine colours. So, Gala, lipstick. Photograph, paint, well, drawn, painted if you will. This has begun long before the invention of Photoshop. There was no such thing as Photoshop until the very early 90s. So it would be another, 30 years before we got Photoshop. This would have been a photograph, would have been physically cut out to make the photographic copy. Airbrushing might have been brought into account as well. It was a literally little spray brush which you can use to touch up images. So what does the copy say? Script font, looks like it's handwritten, makes it personal. New light bright. Okay, again, alliteration, fun. Okay, personal. Slanting letters suggest excitement, suggest progress to the future. Right, it's drawing in lips, again, objectification. It's reducing women to objects, of lips, as sexual objects. Okay, why do women wear lipstick? Well, women will paint their lips red because the lips become engorged with blood during sexual arousal. It makes the lips look like they're red, like they're sexually aroused. This makes them attractive to men. Lightly red, newly pink, hotly pink. Again, heat, hot, associated with sexuality, flushed cheeks. Yeah, so this is pink. What does it say? Picture of the products, you know what it looks like in store. Slimline. The new complete lip line gives perfect shape and outline to the new lip brilliance. 5 shillings and 6pence. Little gem, matching nail colour, handbag size, 2 shillings and 6pence. So again, about the same, couple of quid. Same price as the magazine, really. Again, serif font makes it look sophisticated. Again, you can bring that thing about serif fonts being more feminine. I don't agree with it, but you could mention it. Right, photograph of the hand, picture of the product, it being used. This does not look like this. Alright? Presumably you dip this into there or something, I suppose. Don't know. Nonetheless, it's suggesting makeup and cosmetics is about making yourself more beautiful and therefore more attractive. Ties in with Laura Mulvey, ties in with Lisbeth Van Zunen. It's about the objectification of women and the codes in which they communicate meaning. Similar over here. This advert here for spray tan. The new, sophisticated, individual skin type approach to natural tanning in the sun. The idea of suntans being attractive was something that only came about in the 1920s. I believe it was Coco Chanel that popularised the suntan. Until then, it was beauty and sophistication came with being pale. Only people who had suntans were working class poor people because they had to work out in the fields in the sunshine all day. People who got to stay indoors and didn't have to work in the fields, they got to be pasty and pale. However, in the 1920s, sunbathing, or sunbaths as they were also called at the time, was associated with leisure and having leisure time to be able to lay around in the sun. it became associated with international travel. So you could go somewhere that was sunny, and you had to be rich to be able to do that. So, with that, you also want to be able to fake that. It's postmodernism, isn't it? It's, pastiche. It's a in hyper-reality. Okay, this idea that you are, it's a simulacra. You're simulating a suntan. It comes out of a bottle. So if you can't actually go on a cruise, look at the on the ring here, the life preserver. Suggesting she's lying in a sunbed on a Mediterranean cruise, right? Something that only rich could afford. A faster suntan and a lovelier skin. Now, double the receptiveness of your skin to the sun's beneficial tanning rays. It was like new, sophisticated. So I think it's sophisticated, it's high tech, it's modern, it's new. Beneficial tanning rays. They didn't know so much about skin cancer in those days, and they still had an ozone layer. Drop capital there. The beauty of your suntan this summer, and of your skin after the summer, notice the emphasis of your, it's personal, it's a direct address, italics for emphasis, may be amazingly improved if you choose a suntan preparation specifically suited to your own individual skin type. Of the 3 special formulas of the spray tan described below, select the one that is right for your skin, and see how much faster your skin tans in the sun and how much healthier and lovelier it looks. Spray tan's exclusive high-potent filter fluid, F2931, technical babble, we still have the same thing today, don't we? Shoving exotic chemicals and ingredients into cosmetics to make it sound more impressive. Intensifies the natural tanning of the skin in an amazing way, even when the sky is partly overcast, while it prevents sunburn by arresting 99.9% of the harmful rays. And what's more, thanks to the different particular properties of skincare for each of these special formulas, the receptiveness of your skin to the sun is now strikingly improved. Do as discriminating women do everywhere, in Torquay, Palma, Cannes, San Marino, and Estoril. Well, Spain, France, Italy, Portugal. Yeah, it's jet setting again. It's international travel. For the first time, people were able to do this. Okay, Torquay, of course, is in England. Choose your spray tan according to your individual skin type. All chemists and stores, 12 shillings and 6pence. About twice as much as the magazine cost. Spray tan, special suntan preparations for natural high potency tanning and skincare in the sun for discriminating women. Again, discriminating is suggesting you've got class. You've got the ability to discriminate between what is good and what is not good. Picture of the product so you know what it looks like. Amongst the 3 special spray tan preparations, choose the one that's specifically indicated by the individual skin type and see for yourself how much better your skin responds to the sun. Spray tan extra soft, sun balm, skin nourishing. For dry and delicate skin, better than oil for nourishing the skin and does not smear like oil, prevents summer wrinkles and premature skin aging from the prolonged exposure to sun radiation through the summer. Spray tan non-greasy, sun lotion with pro-vitamin. For a normal skin with tendencies to oiliness, helps the anti-acne action of ultraviolet sun rays, contains pro-vitamin A which intensifies the tanning action of the sun, water resistant and insect repellent. Spray tan moisturizing. Lanolin foam cream for normal skin with tendency to dryness, re-moisturizes the skin and prevents sun radiations from absorbing the natural moisture from your skin cells, keeps skin soft and fresh. Aniston Limited, 6 Albemarle Street, London, West 1. High profile, desirable address, suggests a sophistication. Again, in many ways, not dissimilar to what a modern advert would be like, but far, far more copy. A modern advert would simply be pictures, much more texture, but again, much like modern cosmetics advertising, its chemical processes, it's suggesting it's high-tech, it's sophisticated, it's the latest technology, and it's available in a variety of options. So, again, still, however, in terms of representations, here we've got a woman in a bathing costume. It's showing off a little bit of skin, but she's lying in the sun. It's showing that she is young, she's beautiful, she is a lady of leisure, she's obviously wealthy because she can afford to go on a cruise. So again, it's this ideal self. It's creating this image of perfection that Stuart Hall would say that, you are reducing people to simple characteristics or traits, that women were there to look pretty. They're not, she's not the captain of the ship, is she? She's just lying on it. Right, so that is an analysis of these articles. Again, largely about creating this ideal self, this representation. Again, women as objects, just a hand and lips in this case. Not about bettering your personality, but this money is saying that women are more than just a pretty face, more than just a clothes horse, that they can do something with money, but it's suggesting that they don't have the knowledge and understanding to do that because it's not something that women are expected to do. Right, so that's an analysis of these 2 pages. Next up, I believe we've got the Q-Tex advert. I think that's the next one up. No, it's not. It's the Revlon advert. This is in between these 2. So, Revlon advert up next. That's page 17.